In the quiet, red-soiled village of Okpola, amidst rows of mud houses and swaying palm trees, lived Anita Nokidi, a girl with dreams too big for the place she called home. From a young age, Anita would stare at magazines filled with glamorous women, smooth-skinned, silk-dressed, draped in jewelry, and imagine herself among them. Her mother, Mama Nkechi, was the opposite of that world. A simple woman with hands hardened by years of farming, Mama Nkechi's life was a cycle of planting, harvesting, and trading at the village market. She always wore her threadbare wrapper, her feet forever coated in dust, her voice loud and full of village proverbs. But to Anita, those proverbs began to feel like chains. After high school, Anita got a scholarship to a university in the city. It was her escape. With every passing semester, she polished her speech, straightened her hair, and carefully trimmed away the traces of her rural upbringing. She rarely spoke of her village at school. Even rarer was a mention of her mother. By her final year, Anita had become a rising star on campus, elegant, eloquent, always dressed to impress. She had built a new identity, one where her roots were blurred out like an embarrassing watermark. But no matter how far she ran, her past had a way of finding her. And it found her on the eve of her 24th birthday. Anita was throwing a party. Not just any party, a grand celebration at a luxury rooftop lounge in the heart of the city. It was her arrival party. A statement that she had finally arrived at the life she had always wanted. Everyone who mattered was invited. Everyone, except Mama Nkechi. Or so Anita thought. The city skyline shimmered under the setting sun as Anita stood by her apartment window, rehearsing her guest list. She wanted this party to be perfect. A celebration that would leave her Instagram followers gasping, her classmates envious, and her new corporate mentors impressed. She had curated every detail: the rooftop venue, the champagne tower, the DJ spinning the latest Afrobeats hits. Even her outfit was a designer piece she couldn't truly afford but justified as an investment in her image. But as she reviewed her digital invite list one last time, a name popped into her mind. Mama Nkechi. The thought came uninvited, like a speck of dust ruining a polished glass. She paused. What would Mama do at a city rooftop lounge? Anita scoffed aloud. She pictured her mother, dressed in her faded wrapper, walking barefoot amidst her city friends. She imagined the laughter, the whispers, the subtle glances. No. It was unthinkable. Anita closed the thought, just like she had learned to close the village chapters of her life. She convinced herself it was messy, Mama wouldn't fit in. She wouldn't enjoy it. She'd be uncomfortable. She reassured herself, this party isn't for her. It's for me. But what Anita didn't know was that Ugochi, her childhood best friend, had been in touch with Mama Nkechi all along. Ugochi, who had also moved to the city but never abandoned her roots, saw things differently. When she heard Anita was celebrating her birthday in grand style, she felt a tug in her heart. Has she told Mama? Ugochi asked herself. A few quick calls confirmed her suspicion. Mama Nkechi had no idea. But Ugochi was never one to let sentimentality be silenced by pride. She made her decision. If Anita wouldn't invite her mother, she would. The morning of Anita's birthday was like any other for Mama Nkechi, up before dawn, fetching water, tending to her vegetable patch. But when Ugochi's call came through, everything changed. Ma, Anita is having a big party today in the city. She's too busy to tell you herself, but I thought you should know. Mama Nkechi's heart swelled with joy, not offense. My daughter is now a woman of the city, she said, clapping her hands with pride. Ugochi hesitated. Mama, it's a high-class party. City people don't dress like us. But Mama Nkechi waved off the warning. Or does it matter how I dress? She's my child. A mother's face is not a costume. She tied her wrapper tightly, dusted her best headscarf, and packed a basket of yams, groundnuts, and a locally woven shawl she had been saving for Anita. Mama Nkechi had never ventured far from Okpula. The thought of navigating noisy city streets was daunting. But the pride of seeing her daughter shine was a stronger pull than fear. With Ugochi's directions scribbled on a piece of brown paper, Mama Nkechi embarked on the long journey. She boarded a rickety bus to the city, her basket carefully balanced on her lap. The other passengers stared, some with amusement, others with pity. "She's going to embarrass herself in the city," someone whispered. But Mama Nkechi sat upright, her heart filled with anticipation. "She is still my child," she muttered under her breath. "I will clap for her today." What Mama Nkechi didn't know was that the city was no longer a place where mothers like her were easily welcomed. And what Anita didn't know was that life was about to test which mattered more, appearance or blood. The rooftop lounge was buzzing. The city's elite were gathering, colleagues in sleek blazers, socialites in designer gowns, influencers adjusting ring lights for perfect selfies. The champagne tower glistened under soft golden lights, and the DJ's beats sent subtle vibrations through the marble floor. Anita stood at the center of it all. She was stunning. Her figure-hugging satin dress shimmered like molten gold, her makeup flawlessly contoured, her smile rehearsed to perfection. She was exactly where she had always dreamed of being. As guests arrived, Anita floated through them with ease, graceful handshakes, light laughter, and sharp-witted conversations. Every click of a camera felt like another stamp on her ticket to the high life. And then, Ugochi arrived. But she wasn't alone. Trailing slightly behind her, with a basket in hand and wearing a bright Ankara wrapper, was Mama Nkechi. Anita's heart skipped. Her breath caught in her throat as she watched her mother approach, head held high, eyes gleaming with maternal pride. The whispers began immediately. "Who's that? Is she a vendor? Anita knows her." Anita's chest tightened. She couldn't breathe. Ugochi gave her a subtle nod, as if saying, "You can handle this with grace." But Anita's insecurities screamed louder. As Mama Nkechi reached out to embrace her, Anita did the unthinkable. She took a small step back. "Oh, Mama, you didn't have to come all the way here," Anita said, her smile strained, her voice sharp. "This isn't the village." The silence was deafening. Guests exchanged glances. Some awkward, some amused. Cameras were still. Mama Nkechi's hands lowered slowly. Confusion and hurt flashed across her face, but she quickly masked it with a forced smile. "I brought you yams and groundnuts. You always loved them." Anita's face flushed crimson. "This is not the place for farm gifts, Mama." "We'll talk later," she said, motioning to a waiter to help her mother. Mama Nkechi stood still for a moment, absorbing the subtle rejection. But she said nothing. She simply smiled. A smile that carried decades of sacrifices. And Anita, in her designer dress and shimmering makeup, had no idea that her moment of shame would soon become her most public lesson. The music resumed, louder this time, as if to drown the awkward tension that had sliced through the air. Guests returned to their drinks and conversations, but a few couldn't help sneaking glances at Mama Nkechi as a waiter guided her to a quiet corner near the balcony. Anita avoided looking in that direction. She told herself it was fine, her mother wouldn't understand this kind of party. She wouldn't fit. She had protected her mother from embarrassment. That's what she convinced herself. But Ugochi's eyes followed her everywhere. "You're ashamed of her, aren't you?" Ugochi said quietly as she approached Anita. Anita frowned. "Ugochi, please. Don't start." "Start what?" "Reminding you of the woman who sold firewood to pay your school fees." Anita's fist clenched around her champagne glass. "She doesn't belong here," Anita muttered. "This is not the village." Ugochi's disappointment was palpable. "And who told you that? The people you're trying to impress? Or the version of yourself that you invented?" Before Anita could respond, A sudden burst of commotion erupted near the entrance. A tall, sharply dressed man strode in, flanked by cameras. It was Chief Oladipo, a renowned businessman and the guest of honor Anita had desperately hoped would attend. Anita's panic dissolved into excitement. This was her moment. She straightened her posture, adjusted her dress, and made her way to greet him. "Chief, welcome. It's an honor to have you here," she said, her voice laced with charm. But Chief Oladipo barely glanced at her. His eyes had caught sight of something else. Or rather, someone else. "Oh, madam!" Chief Oladipo exclaimed, walking past Anita toward the balcony corner. "Mama Nkechi. Is this not you?" Anita froze. What was happening? Chief Oladipo reached Mama Nkechi and embraced her warmly. "Oh, my people. This woman's roasted groundnut saved me during my youth in the village. I used to owe her market money every week," he said, laughing heartily. The room turned. Suddenly, all eyes were on Mama Nkechi, not as a village woman, but as a cherished memory of a powerful man's humble beginnings. Chief Oladipo continued, "You see this woman? She fed half of us who now wear suits in this city. You should celebrate her more than any cake or champagne here today." Anita's heart sank. The very mother she had hidden away was now the centerpiece of the party, being celebrated by the man whose approval she had desperately sought. The ground beneath her shifted. Karma had entered the party. The entire rooftop had transformed. Guests who had barely spared Mama Nkechi a glance were now gathering around her, eager to shake her hand, take selfies, and hear stories of Chief Oladipo's humble village days. Laughter echoed. Conversations buzzed with phrases like, "Imagine, this is the woman who used to roast groundnuts for Chief," and "What a blessing to meet her." Anita stood frozen, watching the scene unfold. The party that was meant to announce her arrival into the elite had been hijacked by the one person she had tried to keep invisible. Mama Nkechi sat calmly in the center of it all, her presence now a magnet. She spoke with warmth, sprinkling her sentences with village idioms that charmed everyone. Guests who moments ago whispered mockingly were now clapping and nodding as if they had known her all along. Ugochi leaned over to Anita and whispered, "Still think she doesn't belong here." Anita's stomach twisted. Chief Oladipo returned to her side. His expression was kind, but his words were sharp. "Young lady, never be ashamed of where you come from. Your mother is the reason you're standing here in glittering clothes while she still wears her simple wrapper. That is not something to hide. That's something to honor." Anita's throat went dry. The cameras, once fixated on her, were now capturing Mama Nkechi's every word, every smile, every village proverb. And the internet. Oh, it would feast on this story. A daughter embarrassed by her mother, only for the world to embrace that mother more than she ever did. For the first time that evening, Anita felt naked. Stripped of her borrowed confidence, her designer gown felt like a costume. She wasn't the star of this celebration. Her mother was. But rather than feel resentment, Anita's heart cracked open in a way it hadn't in years. She remembered the nights Mama Nkechi stayed awake, sewing by lantern light to pay her school fees. The mornings she sold roasted yams in the market, carrying Anita on her back. The countless times she said, "Go and be bigger than me, my child. But never forget me." Anita had forgotten. But tonight, the universe had made sure she remembered. And it had come with a microphone. The music played on, but to Anita, it was a distant hum. The conversations, the laughter, the flashing cameras, they all blurred as she stood there, her heart pounding beneath layers of shame and realization. She couldn't take it anymore. With trembling steps, she made her way through the crowd toward Mama Nkechi, who was now surrounded by a cluster of guests, all hanging on to her every word. "Mama," Anita said, her voice barely above a whisper. Mama Nkechi turned, her eyes softening instantly at the sight of her daughter. Anita's composure cracked. "Mama, I'm sorry, she blurted out, her throat tightening. I was ashamed of you. I wanted to be someone who didn't come from dust and yams and wrappers. But I was wrong. You are the reason I can even stand here today. A hush fell over the crowd. The influencers stopped posing. The executives stopped sipping. Even Chief Oladipo stood in respectful silence. Anita dropped to her knees. Tears spilled freely. You deserve better than my pride, Mama. You deserve to be the first person I invited here tonight. Mama Nkechi, moved beyond words, knelt beside her daughter and pulled her into a tight embrace. My child, I never needed an invitation to love you. But I'm glad you finally remembered where your wings came from, she whispered. Applause erupted, not the polite clapping of party etiquette, but a heartfelt ovation that echoed through the city skyline. Chief Oladipo approached them, lifting Anita to her feet. Now, that is a woman ready for true greatness. From that moment, the party's tone shifted. It was no longer a showcase of status but a celebration of roots, of resilience, of the beauty in humble beginnings. Guests began sharing their own stories, of mothers who sacrificed, of fathers who toiled unseen. The night became less about champagne towers and more about honoring the foundations upon which their successes were built. Anita felt lighter. Freer. For the first time, she wasn't performing. She was just herself. And in being so, she had become everything she ever wanted to be. The party wound down, but the evening had carved itself into the memories of everyone who witnessed it. Anita and Mama Nkechi sat together on a bench near the balcony, looking out over the glittering cityscape. Mama, Anita began, her voice softer now, I spent so long trying to outrun where I came from. But tonight, I realized I was running away from myself. Mama Nkechi chuckled gently. Child, no matter how far a river flows, it never forgets its source. Anita smiled, this time without a trace of pretense. Her phone buzzed incessantly, notifications, tags, video clips of the night's events going viral. People weren't talking about her dress or the expensive decor. They were talking about the village mother who became the heart of a city party. About the daughter who rediscovered her roots under the glow of city lights. Ugochi joined them, grinning from ear to ear. You know this party is going to be a headline tomorrow, right? The girl who denied her mother and found herself. Anita laughed. Not a polite, rehearsed laugh. A real one. Let them write it. It's the truth. Chief Oladipo approached once more, this time extending an offer Anita never expected. I run an initiative for young professionals, those who understand that leadership starts with humility. We need people like you, Anita. People who've learned where true strength comes from. Anita was stunned. She thought the night had ruined her image. But in truth, it had built her a reputation far stronger than any glittery facade could. As the final guests trickled out, Anita turned to Mama Nkechi and said, Mama, next year, we're throwing a party. But this time, in Okpola village. And you will be the guest of honor. Mama Nkechi's eyes twinkled. My child, the city may be tall, but the roots of a tree are always in the ground. That night, Anita walked her mother to a guest room in her apartment, her head high, her heart full. For she had finally learned. True greatness is not in escaping your roots, but in standing tall because of them.